My name is Marcus. I'm 47, an executive at a software firm in Seattle. That morning, I stood at the harbor, wrapped in the familiar March chill. One hand held a bouquet of tulips, the other, 2 cruise tickets printed in gold foil. A 7-day journey along the Pacific coast, starting from Seattle to Vancouver, down through San Francisco and Monterey, then looping home again. It wasn't just a random trip. It was our 14th wedding anniversary gift, something I'd spent 4 months planning for Felicia, my wife. Every stop along the way was picked with care. The seafood spot she once bookmarked on Instagram, the tiny wine shop in Napa she said she wanted to visit just once in this life. And me? I remembered it all, like I always do. She showed up 10 minutes late, no rush in her step, no explanation. Beside her was Damien, her personal trainer, the one I used to pay by the hour, not even a year ago. Felicia looked me in the eyes, blank and cold, then dropped it like I was a stranger she needed to be firm with. Damien's going instead. He actually knows the fun spots. Then she walked past me. No suitcase, no goodbye, no second glance. Just boarded the ship with him like I was never even there. I stood there at the dock, the wind slipping through my collar. People around me laughed, sipped coffee, talked about lunch plans, like this was just another Tuesday. But for me, it was the day I realized something hard. You can pour your whole heart into something, and someone else can treat it like a free ride. I looked at the ticket in my hand, slipped it into my coat pocket, and wheeled my suitcase back to the car. I guess the 14th anniversary party happened after all. I just wasn't on the guest list. If you enjoy honest, reflective stories like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming next. I met Felicia when I was 33. It was my first business trip to Tokyo. Economy class, aisle seat. She was a flight attendant on that flight. Hair tied up, voice soft but firm, her smile polite more than warm. Nothing too remarkable, honestly, until she leaned down during dinner service and asked if I needed anything else. I said I was good. She nodded, then casually asked what I was reading. It was a 10-hour flight, and we talked for maybe 30 minutes. But by the time we landed, I already knew I'd find a way to see her again. We got married 2 years later, after a long-distance relationship full of calls, airport reunions, and time zone math. When Felicia left flying to settle down, I was just starting my own company. My first office was my dad's old garage. She said it didn't matter, as long as I had a dream and was fighting for it. She started learning to cook, read books on gardening, ordered secondhand furniture to give the house some soul. There were years when everything felt light. Weekend Netflix binges, no pressure to talk, but never feeling uncomfortable in silence. One time we drove 7 hours just to see a beach in Oregon because she read the water there was bluer. Every Sunday, we had breakfast together, just peanut butter toast and coffee. That was it, and it felt like we were living something right. But I never noticed when that rightness began to crack. She started saying I didn't smile like I used to, that I wasn't spontaneous anymore, that I was too predictable. I came home at the same time, sat in the same chair, watched the same news, drank the same beer. She brought up other couples. Her friend's husband surprised her with a trip to the Maldives. A coworker just got whisked off to Santorini, and they'd only been married a year. I laughed and said I was working hard for us. She nodded, but she never said anything else. Damien showed up around last March. Felicia said she wanted to get healthier, feel confident again, get back in shape. I supported it. She signed up for a high-end gym, hired a personal trainer. Damien, young, ripped, always posting runs through Discovery Park like he was some lifestyle guru. At first, I was happy she found something that made her excited again. But then the workouts ran long. Coffee dates followed. The crop tops started showing up. "For my new body," she said. I never asked. Not because I didn't know, but because some part of me believed that if I didn't say it out loud, maybe it would stop on its own. I was wrong. And I knew it the moment she walked onto that cruise ship with someone else, on the very day I had planned to say thank you, for 14 years together. I woke up early that morning. It was still dark out, the car windows fogged with a thick layer of dew. Everything had been packed the night before, but I still went through it all one last time. Tickets, IDs, hotel confirmations, the full itinerary, all printed, neatly organized inside a black leather folder resting on the kitchen counter. I loaded the luggage into the car and drove straight to the port to check them in early. The concierge recognized me right away. VIP cabin on the top deck. I told them to take good care of the bags, said my wife would be arriving shortly. Felicia was a night owl. I wanted her to sleep in, take her time getting ready. She always liked her first impression to be flawless. I returned to the car and dozed off for a bit. Around 8 a.m., I stood at the harbor gate, tulips in my right hand, cruise tickets in my left. That's when I saw her. But she wasn't alone. Damien was walking beside her. White shirt slightly unbuttoned, his hand resting lightly on her lower back. Easy, familiar, like he'd done it 100 times before. Felicia didn't look surprised to see me, like this had already been planned. She walked up calmly, eyes steady, and said something that wasn't cruel or mocking, just a statement. Like she was explaining a decision made long ago. Damien's younger, more confident, knows places you'd never think to go. I'm still taking this trip, just not with you. I didn't move. The wind from the bay slipped down the back of my collar. I clenched the gold-stamped tickets just a little tighter. Tickets I'd once treated like a gift for someone I believed would treasure them. Felicia didn't look at me with guilt. She looked at me like she was doing me a favor, like she was finally freeing me from an illusion I should have let go of a long time ago. I didn't react, didn't ask why, didn't accuse. I just set the leather folder down on the bench beside me and said quietly, "The tickets and itinerary are all in there, in case you need them." Then I turned and walked away, pulled my coat tight against the wind, never looked back. The 14th anniversary trip? Looks like I was quietly removed from the guest list. I didn't go home. I drove straight to the office. The whole floor was quiet, just the soft ding of the elevator and the glow from the hallway lights reflecting off the frosted glass. My reflection stared back at me from the office doors, thinner somehow, smaller, like a worn-out version of myself. But my eyes, they were sharp, steady. Sarah, my assistant, looked stunned when I walked in. She was still holding her morning coffee, the other hand clutching her notebook. She glanced at her watch, then back at me, like she was trying to remember if she'd messed up my schedule. She asked, stammering, if I hadn't boarded the ship yet. Said she figured I'd be sipping champagne in a luxury cabin by now, watching the ocean from a sunlit deck. I just nodded and told her I forgot a few things I needed to take care of, then walked straight into my office. The door closed behind me. Silence. I sat in my chair, the one I've always sat in, powered on my computer. A few clicks, and the system dashboard lit up. Everything was still exactly how I built it. The itinerary, hotel bookings, airport pickups, dinner reservations, attraction passes, every single part of that trip was in my name, paid through the company's executive expense account. And I'm the sole legal representative. All verifications, OTP to my phone. Account holder ID, me. Felicia had the tickets, the schedule, and her young gym-sculpted +1. But she didn't have access. Cruise policies required a verified ID to check into the cabin. The VIP suite needed the cardholder present to unlock the minibar, use the spa, or even order a drink at the rooftop restaurant. I logged into the bank system, removed every supplementary card, froze her spending access, canceled every monthly shopping allowance I used to give her. No questions asked. Step by step. No hesitation. No second thoughts. It felt like reverse engineering a machine I once built from scratch. Piece by piece, I dismantled the life I gave her. Next, the other systems. I changed every password. Banking, digital wallets, travel apps, booking accounts, the spa app I once downloaded on her phone. Revoked access, blocked backup emails, deleted every link between her and the company. She used to be my emergency contact. Not anymore. When it was all done, I leaned back in my chair. I used to think, if the woman I loved could live comfortably, do what she enjoyed, smile freely, then everything I worked for would be worth it. I worked non-stop, built a business, made money, more than I needed. Not for me, for her. So she'd never have to second-guess anything. I bought her everything she liked, booked her massages, at the exact 5-star spa she once casually mentioned. I paid for her personal training sessions, the ones I now realize included extra hours. And in the exact moment she walked hand in hand with another man onto the ship I chose, I understood. She never saw it as generosity. She saw it as default. No words were needed. Now I'm just taking back what was mine, not for revenge, but so she finally understands. Comfort doesn't fall from the sky. I locked every account, shut down every path. If today feels like loss to her, that's just the distance between what she had and what she thought would last forever. After locking down everything, I didn't go home. I opened the airline's website with no destination in mind. All I knew was I couldn't spend another night in Seattle. Venice popped up in the corner of the screen, a photo of deep green canals, old houses leaning over the water. I remembered once telling Felicia I wanted to visit Venice by the time I turned 50. She laughed and said it was a place you only go with someone who knows how to slow down. I booked the ticket. Tonight, a late flight connecting through Frankfurt. Business class. Window seat. Then I called Leah. My sister lives in Denver. Divorced 3 years ago after her husband cheated. She rebuilt everything from scratch. She's not the crying type. She's the gather the pieces in silence and build a life from them kind. I told her 3 things. Grab your passport. Tonight, 10 p.m., International Airport, Venice, my treat. She didn't ask why. The flight to Venice was nearly 17 hours, including the layover in Frankfurt. I slept most of it. Not deeply, but just enough to keep my mind from replaying that morning at the dock. I left my phone in airplane mode the entire trip. Partly because I didn't want to be bothered. Mostly because I was afraid I'd fold the second I saw a message from Felicia while floating somewhere over the Atlantic. When we landed in Italy, Leah and I caught a taxi to the hotel. We had lunch at a small restaurant down the street, then wandered through narrow cobbled alleys. The canal water sparkled like glass, moss-covered bridges, distant church bells echoing like faded memories. I felt lighter, though still carrying a weight somewhere I hadn't quite touched yet. That evening, we ate at a restaurant on the edge of San Polo. Red wine spaghetti, a bottle of mid-tier Chianti. Leah shared some work gossip, then asked how long I planned to stay in Italy. I lifted my wine glass and realized my phone had been completely silent all day. No calls, no texts, no bank alerts, no work emails. Too quiet for a day when so much had gone down. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out my phone, and unlocked it. Top corner still showed airplane mode. I switched it off, and instantly, notifications exploded. Rapid, relentless. Messages, missed calls, voicemails, emails, banking alerts. Felicia's name popped up 3 times within seconds. Before I could read a single one, the phone rang. Video call. I answered. Her voice hit immediately. No hello, no lead-in. Just chaos and panic blasting through the speaker. A man yelling something in French in the background. She was breathing hard, words tumbling out in broken chunks. The hotel refused to check them in. The name on the reservation didn't match her ID. Damien was trying to call around, but everything was booked solid. Her cards kept getting declined, one after another. 3 in total. All failed. Damien didn't have enough cash. Neither did she. I didn't say anything right away. Just lifted my wine glass, took a slow sip. Then I replied, calm even, emotionless. I thought the man you brought along could handle the little things. I didn't reply. She called again right after. Her name lit up on the screen. I declined it. No hesitation. Then came the texts. 1, 2, 3 in a row. She said she was still in the hotel lobby. No room, no food. Damien had gone out, looking for an ATM or a last-minute travel agency. She said his card was just a debit one, with a low limit. He'd assumed everything had already been paid for by me. That's the only reason he agreed to come. She had no cash. Couldn't reach her bank because of the time zone difference. The next message was an apology. Her tone softer now. Nothing like the version of her from that morning on the dock. She said it was all a misunderstanding. Just a misstep. She knew we needed to talk eventually, but for now, she begged me to unlock the card. Just for one night. One night, she wrote. After that, it's your call. I flipped the phone face down on the table. In front of me, the spaghetti had gone cold. Leah was still twirling her fork slowly through hers. She didn't ask anything, just glanced at me and topped off my wine. And for the first time in years, everything finally felt like it was right where it should be. That night, back at the hotel, I opened my laptop. Leah had gone to bed early. She said she needed time to adjust to the time zone, then headed to her room. I sat alone at the desk, bathed in the soft yellow glow of the corner lamp. I opened my work inbox. A few days without checking emails, but nothing urgent had piled up. Then I logged into my private account and started a new message. Subject line simple and clear. Urgent divorce counsel request. The recipient was Jonathan Friedman, my personal attorney for over a decade. I kept it brief. The marriage is over. There are signs of infidelity. I need an assessment of shared assets and a formal divorce filing. No negotiations. No mediation. At the end of the email, I added one more line. I'd also like to update my designated heir. We never had kids, and for years, I thought if anything ever happened to me, everything, company, house, shares, accounts, would go to her. She was the only family I had left. Or at least, that's what I believed. Not anymore. I pulled up the company's internal financial records, logged into the shareholder system, removed Felicia's temporary co-beneficiary status from the trust draft. She was never an official shareholder, but I'd planned to add her name in the upcoming update. I deleted it from the successor field, saved the change. The entire process took less than 15 minutes. Erasing someone from your life doesn't take nearly as long as it did to let them in. I closed the laptop. The screen dimmed, fading to black. Outside, the wind brushed through the canals below. Tomorrow, I'll start fresh, not out of revenge, but because it's finally time to clean house. My last morning in Venice, I woke up early, not because of an alarm, just the soft splashing of water in the canal below and sunlight slipping through the curtains. I threw on a coat, made 2 cups of espresso, and knocked on the door next to mine. Leah was already up. She smiled and said I looked like someone who had finally dropped a heavy, soaked backpack off his shoulders. We headed out, walking through narrow alleyways, still untouched by tourists. Our footsteps echoed on the damp stone. Leah talked more that morning, about the day she found out her husband had cheated, about how it felt like her spine had been ripped out. But then, one afternoon, she sat in a second-hand bookstore and saw a woman browsing alone, calm and content. In that moment, Leah told me she wished she could be that peaceful. And from that day on, she started living as if she was learning how to stand alone, without clinging to anyone. I didn't say much, just listened. But her words felt like a quiet period at the end of a chapter I had finally walked out of. That afternoon, we flew back to Seattle. I don't know how Felicia got home, whether she flew back from Paris or went somewhere else with Damien. But when I pulled into the driveway, the same driveway I once worked late nights just to afford the down payment for, I saw her sitting on the front steps, head in her hands, hair loose, no suitcase, no purse. I had changed the locks. That's why she couldn't get in. She looked up when she heard my car, eyes red, face drawn and pale. She stood as I parked, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. I got out and walked toward the door, didn't stop, didn't speak, until I reached the steps. And then calmly, without raising my voice, I said, "You should find somewhere else to stay. I'll have your things packed and delivered. Just send the address by email. Everything will be handled carefully." She started shaking her head, then crying. Then sat down again, clinging to her knees, shouting my name, demanding how I could be so heartless, asking if I still had any love left for the woman who used to be my wife. I stood there for a moment, checked the time. Then I pulled out my phone, dialed a number. I told her if she kept making a scene, I'd call the police. She looked up, and this time, she went silent. I opened the door, stepped inside, closed it behind me. And for the first time, this house wasn't the place where we used to live. It was the place where I finally started living again. 3 weeks later, I sat in my lawyer's office. It wasn't my first time in that old leather chair by the window, but it was the first time I sat there without a trace of hope. Robert, my longtime attorney, had everything ready. The prenup, signed just days before our wedding nearly 14 years ago, was still fully valid. Everything I owned before the marriage, 80% of the company shares, the house in North Seattle, a handful of other investments, remained protected. No one could touch them unless there was a written agreement saying otherwise. We had no children. That made the split cleaner, colder. Robert was blunt. Under the terms of the prenup, Felicia was only entitled to a share of marital assets, anything acquired during the marriage, and even that would be adjusted based on misuse of funds. That meant anything spent on the affair counted against her. We submitted credit card statements, 3 dinners at upscale restaurants I'd never even heard of. A boutique hotel in Paris, dated the same day she texted me, "Don't wait up." There were even photos. Security cam stills from the hotel lobby. Damien, rolling their suitcase behind her, his hand on her hip. Both of them laughing. No room left for denial. Felicia's lawyer went quiet for a long time after flipping through the file. She had probably assumed she'd walk away with half the house. Maybe a few percentage points of the company. At the very least, some kind of compensation for 14 years of being a wife. But the law doesn't reward betrayal. Robert slid the final copy of the divorce settlement across the table. Felicia's share came out to 12%. After deductions, luxury spa visits, personal training sessions, her secondary credit card, designer purchases with no clear reason, every item listed, 5 spreadsheets deep, clean, precise, no arguments. She signed it after 3 weeks of delay, not because she understood, but because she had no other choice. A few days later, I ran into one of Felicia's close friends, the one who never said much whenever I was around. She told me Damien had disappeared, not blocked her number, not ghosted in a dramatic way, just quietly vanished once he found out Felicia couldn't pay for anything anymore. Word is, he went back to his ex. Not as pretty as Felicia, apparently, but she had her own apartment in Westwood. I wasn't surprised. Guys who live off their abs usually go where the bed's soft and breakfast's free. Damien wasn't just the other man. He was a man with no plan. No hotel booking, no credit card with a proper limit, no cash on hand. He only went on that trip because he thought I'd paid for everything. Felicia, from what I hear, is still trying to find a job. She's no longer in Seattle. Supposedly moved temporarily to Santa Monica, renting a low-cost studio near her new job, a small gallery no one's heard of, like starting from scratch, only this time, with no one backing her up. That fall, I went back to Venice. It wasn't about running away this time. It wasn't some soul-searching, find your center again kind of thing like people always say. I went back because, for the first time in over a decade, I'd found a place that made me feel at peace, for no reason at all. I rented a small apartment overlooking the canal. It had white-painted wooden windows, and in the mornings, soft sunlight filtered through sheer linen curtains. I'd brew coffee, open my laptop, and put in a few hours of work remotely for the Seattle office. Leah was still a shareholder and would occasionally tease me in emails, calling me the Nomad CEO. Most days, I walked aimlessly through the narrow alleyways, popped into secondhand bookstores. Sometimes I'd just sit for hours at the same cafe and watch people go by. No one asked me when I was coming back. No one texted, "Why haven't you answered my email?" I didn't owe anyone an explanation for how I was living. One afternoon, I was reading in the back courtyard when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring a few times before answering. The voice on the other end was so familiar I thought I was imagining it. Felicia. Her voice soft, slightly raspy. She asked how I'd been. Said lately she'd been remembering the old days. Sunday mornings with waffles and the newspaper. Long drives across Oregon just because I once said the sky looked beautiful that day. I didn't respond. She hesitated, then said, if I ever came back to Seattle, maybe we could grab a coffee. Just to talk. Nothing more, she said. I knew she was lying, but I let her finish. I looked out toward the lagoon. The water was still, with the occasional silhouette of a bird skimming the surface like a blade. I told her I had no plans to return to Seattle anytime soon, that I was doing well, and I didn't want to stir up anything that once left me exhausted. She went quiet, then softly said, "I understand." I ended the call. Didn't save the number. Didn't feel sad. No what-ifs crossed my mind. 2 weeks later, Leah flew out to visit. We took a small boat to Murano, had lunch outside, drank white wine, and laughed like time didn't mean a damn thing. She told me she'd met someone, divorced, 2 kids, teaches history. She said, maybe this one's the right one. I told her I was happy for her, and I meant it. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote a single line. I used to live trying to hold on to someone. Now I live trying to hold on to myself. I don't know where Felicia is. Maybe in LA, maybe she's already moved on to somewhere else. But what I do know is, I'm no longer part of her world, and she's no longer part of mine. We each chose a direction. And for me, that direction is peace. Not forgiveness, just no regrets. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this story spoke to you, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it.